Death is the one story every life shares, but the conversations around it rarely happen. Welcome to the show that opens the doors to the funeral profession. The people, the stories, and the truths most never hear. This is As the Hearse Turns.
Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday. So, I'll give it a few minutes and let a couple of folks come on in, and then we will get started. But yeah, I want to talk about funeral pricing tonight. I think it will be an interesting conversation, and hopefully we'll get a couple good comments to go along with our brief talk. We're not going to be long, but we'll see. Hopefully, everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. I know the weather here was like in the 80s and gorgeous. So hopefully it stays that way. Let's see. We got some people popping in here. Susan from Cleveland, Vancouver, Washington, Florida, Philly. Amazing. So, all right. We've got about 20 people in, so let's go ahead and get started here. So, the reason I wanted to come on and have a conversation was over the past couple weeks, I've been getting some, pricing phone calls at the funeral home. And during the pricing conversations, we're just talking back and forth. And I'm not the only funeral home that they've called. Um, and then they start asking, well, why is your price different than or higher than someone else's? And I ask, and I want to know, are you truly comparing apples to apples? Or are we just comparing, the ad price that you see on a website or on, I don't even know, a Yellow Pages ad or things like that? So tonight we're going to talk about one of the biggest frustrations that families face when planning a funeral. Pricing that sounds one way, but when you walk through the door, it's completely different. Now, listen, before anyone gets all defensive and up in arms and craziness like that, let me say this, and I want to be very clear. Not every funeral home operates this way, okay? There are many ethical, transparent funeral directors out there doing things the right way every single day. However, there are situations where families feel like they were sold one thing and handed a completely different bill. And that's what we're going to unpack here tonight. So, if you've got some questions or anything like that, feel free to put it in the comments and I'll try to get to them. It is a little bit difficult for one person to watch the comments, but still try to keep track of what we're trying to talk about. And then, just so everybody knows, there's Catherine. Hey. Um, Catherine has to get a funeral home ready to open. So she's got some other priorities right now, but she will be back with us next Thursday when we have Carlton May on, and we're going to talk and have a great night with him. That's going to be a blast. So I do have some notes that I wanted to talk about. So one of the main things I want to talk about are ads. Okay, so you'll see ads that simply say direct cremation $9.95 or funeral package for $49.95 or the words simple cremation. So families that are not trained or that have never had to plan a funeral before, they assume, oh, that's the total. That's great. Let's go ahead. $995. It's fine. But here's the thing. Those low prices that get you to click, that get you to want to engage or something like that, it may only include your basic service fee, the transfer from the place of death, maybe the minimal alternative container, and then It's possible that that might mean you're not even going to meet with a funeral director face to face. It might just be an electronic arrangement where where the paperwork is sent to you to electronically sign. You're not actually physically going into an office, and that can be a big red flag. You you want to see who you're working with. You want to be able to look at the facilities. You know, you want to be able to smell in the facilities. So, getting in there and meeting folks face to face, you'll find out how you feel and get that comfort level. So, based off of those low prices, you may be missing certain things like a crematory fee, your permits, if they are going to be adding refrigeration or sheltering of your loved one. What if you're outside of the minimal coverage area and then mileage would need to be added to the contract? Or if there are charges for them to help you create and write an obituary? Because after this these phone calls and doing some digging, I've gone out and I've looked at general price lists and hand to the man upstairs. There are some funeral homes that charge for you to sneeze. Okay. I'm surprised they're not charging by the tissue you're pulling out of the Kleenex box, but they're there. And, you know, you've got what if there's extra charges for a visitation, or, it, there are questions that need to be asked. So why I put in the description of the ad that we were talking about this tonight is this clickbait, or not clickbait, bait and switch, to where a family in their time of need at 3 o'clock in the morning, their loved one passes away. If they're in a facility or a nursing home, there might be a time limit where they've got to make a decision, make a phone call within 2 to 3 hours to get their loved one taken into the care of a funeral home. And they see on a website or on a banner that, oh, complete burial package for $49.95. Okay. That sounds great. Let's go ahead. Let's call them. So you call them, and you're not thinking straight. You're in grief. You've just lost someone you love, someone that you care about, and you're having to make these decisions right then and there. But you saw that number, that, we can afford that. That's perfect. Hey, ABC Funeral Home, come on. Here's where my loved one is. Bring them into your care. Then they're going to set up an appointment with you. And next thing you know, you go for the arrangement conference. And yeah, you may be starting at $49.95. It may be their professional service fee starts at $49.95. But what about merchandise? So you got caskets, you have vaults, you have your honorariums if you need to have a clergy officiate the service. There are so many things that still get added into there that truly are not reflective. So yes, you may have walked in the door at $49.95, but you're walking out at 12 to 14,000. There are questions that are very important that you need to ask, that you need to make sure. Okay, let's say it says the service is $8,000. Okay, how many hours of visitation is permitted within that $8,000 period or price? How many types of caskets can you select from if they're saying casket included? Because here's the thing. If anyone has ever sold cars or something like that, you always see that ad in the paper that says one model available. It's, $14,995. And next thing you know, you get there and it's $14,995. It's that one model, but it's like a lime green with roll down windows, no AC, and it's a manual transmission. So yes, for $49.95, they may include a casket, or $8,000, they may include a casket. However, it might be the most unattractive looking casket that's there. So it's doing the actual. Hold on, Catherine posted something. You should touch on the fact that we saw on the GPL this week that there was a sheltering of remain charge after 12 hours. What happens if someone dies at 10 p.m. on a Friday night? Many doctors don't sign a death certificate. Yes. So that's a good point. When Catherine and I were looking at a GPL, we saw that there is a charge for refrigeration and sheltering of remains after 12 hours. So whether disposition could be performed or whether there was a delay in disposition, whatnot, you automatically, and I believe the refrigeration or the sheltering charge was $250 per day that got added on to the price of that package that got the person in the door. There are just so many things like that that need to be addressed. So the questions have to be asked. What is included? What can be done, outside of that? And here's the other thing. For packages, most packages, when a funeral home is offering you a package, there is a discount that is offered with you choosing that package. Okay. So you get a package for $8,000 and all of a sudden you choose, well, I don't want the register book. Dad passed away a year ago. We're going to bring his in and we're going to continue with his book or something like that. Families do it. I'm not making it up. It happens all the time. Well, the next thing you know, they're going to sit across and say, well, if you deviate from this package, you're going to lose the discount. It goes to full itemization. So whether it's 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever, you now lose that because you're being forced to purchase something to gain that discount that you really don't need nor want. And here's the thing. I'm on the As the Hearst Terms page. I'm on my page, my personal page. So a lot of people are not going to like that we're telling it as it is, and that's the truth. So most of the time, these packages, it's every single thing under the sun into this package to make that price, so that irregardless of the 2% that they're giving to make look like a discount is not a discount. And that's where I'm talking about smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. So I've seen too where direct cremation. So if you look at someone's GPL and say their professional service fee is $4,000, okay, and then their transfer from the place of death to the funeral home is $500. And then they say, their direct cremation fee is $4,500. So you're getting hit for the full professional service fee. You're getting hit for the transfer. And then when you come in now, we also have to talk about third-party cash advance items. So if they don't have their own crematory, now the crematory fee gets added onto the cash advance items because they never put it into a one lump sum price. So if you're looking at a $4,000 professional service fee, pretty much just for answering the phone, doing your paperwork and doing your authorizations, and then you're going to pay the full $40 or $500 for the transfer, and now you got to turn around and pay the crematory fee. And here's the kicker. If it's a cash advance item, folks, and the crematory is listed there, okay, here's what's neat. And this is going to piss a lot of people off because I'm telling you the truth. That is the price that the crematory is charging the funeral home. So that is what they were charged to perform the cremation. And then the funeral home turns around and charges XYZ. So it's very important to look at your pricing and make sure that if it's a package, it's a true package and that you're being taken care of and not being taken advantage of. Okay? Because emotional pressure sales happen all the time. And that's what a lot of the slimy, greaseball, hairy wormwood funeral directors take advantage of people. Somebody, and then Catherine's watching while she's giving Max. Max is my buddy. I had so much fun with him on Sunday putting chairs together. He is such a great helper. So let me just see real quick. Go back here real fast in some of the comments and see if we got anything. So Cindy says GPLs can be quite overwhelming if the professional isn't clearly explaining what a package does and doesn't cover. And then someone decides they don't want something in the package or something that isn't included and start to a la carte it, it can be a mess. Absolutely. And this is where it's important when pricing phone calls come in that we're giving adequate and factual pricing over the phone and asking the correct questions. Most of the time, a lot of the questions are just a pricing phone call, and I hate it. It makes my blood boil. Is, hi, this is Chris with the funeral home. How may I help you? Hi, how much is a cremation? And you just spit out the direct cremation fee, and the person on the other line says, fine, thanks, and hangs up the phone. Never once is it a situation where we've taken the time to actually build a rapport with that loved one on the phone, because they're not calling me just because they want to chat. They're calling because they're about to go through one of the worst moments of their life. So for me to take a couple seconds, a couple minutes, and invest and have that conversation, another part is if they don't even ask your loved one's name, if they don't care enough to ask their name, that speaks volumes. Keep that in the back of your mind. Tuck that away, save it for later. You'll love that advice. Somebody, let's see, Jason. Yes, sir, it is. It is Jake and Elwood. My Blues Brothers shirt that I do have on. Let's see. Somebody's asking the average crematory fee ballpark estimate. It really depends on your area. It depends on if the crematory is natural gas or if it is propane ran. Those are different expenses from that crematory, from that provider. Just like every funeral home has different fees. The third party crematory is going to have different fees. There might even be fees for a weight surcharge. So depending on the weight of the decedent, the funeral home or the crematory could charge additional fees to the funeral home, which then is passed on to the consumer, to the family. Let's see. Thank you for talking about this. It's extremely important when possible to prearrange and pay for it, all the pricing at that time. So that, Chastity, it is very important. But again, it's very important as a family that the questions you should be asking when you are calling around and receiving pricing from a funeral home. Because a phone conversation does not require the funeral home to send you a general price list. It's the face-to-face interaction that triggers the FTC funeral rule. So that's very important, something that you need to keep in mind. When the other thing is when you are prearranging, make sure you're asking the correct pricing or correct questions. So, number one, is my contract a guaranteed contract, a guaranteed in part contract, or a non-guaranteed contract? There are 3 different types of contracts, and you want to know which one you're signing. But that'll probably be another long video, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this live tonight, is because I didn't want to try and make this into a video where I'm just talking, because it's going to be a lot of information. Did they teach you how to do this in marketing in school? How to talk to people and educate and inform consumers how not to get taken advantage of? Is that what you're asking, Rich? The average consumer doesn't realize all the parts of a funeral, such as the cemetery. Absolutely. But we're the first contact, Brandon. We as the funeral home. So if we tell a family they're coming in and they're paying X, and you don't even at least preemptively let them know that, hey, these are just the charges here at the funeral home. There's going to be additional charges out there from the crematory, from the cemetery for opening and closing the grave. You may have to go buy cemetery property. Do you want a marker? Do you want a headstone? We are the professional. We should not just be trying to get people in the door and then blindside them. We need to let them know what they're expecting. Big thing that nowadays, how many people, when you call a funeral home, is a funeral home letting you know that, hey, FYI, when you do come in and make arrangements, and when you make arrangements, there's the expectation that the funeral bill is going to be paid. So are we having that conversation saying that, let me get rid of that. Are we having that conversation saying, hey, if you're bringing a personal check, we accept those. If you're using a credit card, there's going to be a processing fee for electronic payments. So yes, it may be, X dollars on your contract, but now you have 3% added on top of that. So that, again, let's inform our consumers. So Rich was asking, I was curious, I wasn't sure what they do in school. So a lot of the marketing that's taught in mortuary college is mainly about presentation, the legalities of, like Catherine says it all the time. There's no such thing as a sealing casket. There's a protective casket. So those are the things that were are taught in school. Hold on. Catherine just sent me a text message. So somebody sent her a message through her messenger, and she said, or they said, hi, I saw you were having a Q&A session today, and I'm thrilled for it. I always watch when I can and gain so much knowledge from these. I do have a question about pre-planning. I'm 32 years old, and I feel the discussion of pre-planning is something me and my husband need to be prepared for. Let's pause right there. That is absolutely one of the best things at 32 years old that you could start to think about. A lot of people will say that, it's ridiculous that we're thinking about this and so forth. But you know what? At 34 or 32, I'm sorry, you are doing yourself and your future family, if you don't already have children, of an amazing favor. When searching for a funeral home, how would we know which one is the right one for us? It seems like we would be interviewing them in a sense. Is this something that you would say should be done in person with the funeral home or by the phone? All right. So that's question number 2. So question number 2, absolutely interview your funeral director. I've used this analogy many times before. How many times, how many hours, how many days do you spend doing research on the internet, looking when you're going to purchase a car? Tons. Very rarely do you just walk into the dealership until you've called and built a rapport, because I don't know many people that enjoy spending walking around on Saturday at a car dealership dealing with salespeople. So yes, interview them, call them on the phone. If you feel like you are building a rapport, building a relationship, ask, can I set up an appointment to come in? Because I'd really like to talk more in person. And then go in, sit down, have a conversation. Don't prearrange from the first meeting. Go through, get everything. Then you and your husband go home, sit down, talk about it, figure out what's financially going to be best for you, whether it's going to be paying everything in one payment or even paying multiple payments and doing like a payment plan over a 3, 5, 7 year span. These are conversations you can have. Don't feel pressured to go in there and make a decision right then and there. And if they're pressuring you, walk away. walk away. Depending on where you live, there's there are plenty of funeral homes, but you should never feel pressured into having to sign a contract. Never. Um, is there a checklist of green flags, red flags that we should be on the lookout for when searching? Depending on your state, most states have a board of funeral service. What you want to do is go ahead and go on their website and look for public orders, public discipline orders, um, admonishments, things like that. That way, if they've ever had a complaint filed against them and it was founded, most of the time this is public information, it's public knowledge. Make sure you're doing things. Read the Google reviews. Read the reviews, go through, make sure other families are having positive experiences. Now, if there's one review there that you never know, but if a majority of the reviews are all saying something wrong, something happened, those are huge red flags. When you go to the actual funeral home itself, is it clean? Is it organized? Is the director, are their staff, are they well put together? Are they presented? Or are they looking like they just rolled out of bed and their shirt has never seen an iron? Okay, those are things, because if they're not taking pride in themselves, they're not taking pride in their work. um it seems so cliche to be planning and discussing something for when that time does come. Not an easy topic to digest, but I will say watching your videos and hearing all the feedback that surrounds the profession does make it easier and puts me at ease. Thank you for always sharing and being transparent. I truly enjoy watching from San Antonio, Texas. I know a couple funeral homes in San Antonio, in Texas area. And I don't know. Catherine just came back from Fort Worth. Maybe she has some connections down in Texas now too. Um, so if we have some folks that we'll put on there, we'll send them the right way. But I appreciate that as an awesome, awesome, awesome question, and thank you for sending that in. Let's see, Chris. Recently, Catherine posted a casket and it was on display at a funeral. Okay, so that wasn't Catherine that posted that. That was me. I actually took that picture in 2025 when I was at that funeral home for a NFDA Meet the Mentors conference. So posted a casket that was 125,000. It was on display at a funeral home in DC. I went to that funeral home's website and saw the price list posted. Their fees seemed way over the top compared to what I've seen elsewhere. Is this big city pricing, or are people paying that for the name, as apparently the funeral home has history dealing with presidential funerals? The location has a lot to do with it, Chris. And yes, you are paying for the name Joseph Guller and Sons. Okay. The professional service fee, just to walk through the door, to sit down with the director, to make arrangements, is $10,000. Everything starts at $10,000. And we will have the former president of Joseph Guller and Sons, who wrote the book One Block West of the White House, with us in August. And, you know, and here's the thing. Let me explain this. And again, this might get me in a little bit of trouble, but you know what? It's worth it. Funeral service, funeral homes are not one size fits all. Okay. Think about it this way. You have so many different hotel chains. You have the Plaza, and then you have the Best Western. There is a chain and there is a brand for every single person out there, but you have to look for it. If you go to the Ramada, you don't expect to receive the same service that you would receive at the Plaza. If you go to the Plaza, you do not expect to receive the same service you receive at the Ramada. So there are different brands, there are different, pricing scales for every family. But the families have got to want to do the research to find out what's best about them. Um, let's see. So there definitely just a couple there, but let me go back here to my notes and figure out. So, you know, one of my biggest concerns is that there's a lot of fear-based selling, there's guilt-based selling, whether it's a protective casket or non-protective casket or a liner versus a vault. Irregardless, over time, the body is going to do what the body is going to do. It doesn't matter if you've bought a $125,000 casket. It doesn't matter if you bought a $2,000 casket. It's what's right for the family. But to bring people in under the pretense that they're going to be paying X and then walk out paying 2 to 3 times that, that's just wrong. So, one of the things that Catherine and I know Chad, Addie, anybody that works in this family here is guidance is ethical and pressure is not. We will not pressure a family to put them into a financial hardship for any reason, way, shape, or form. That is just not how we operate. And again, there are other funeral directors out there that do not operate that way, but unfortunately, there are bad apples. So please do the due diligence, do the research. So it's about 7:30. I said I wasn't going to stay long, but I do want to say there are some questions that I want to make sure that all families are asking. Number one, what is not included? Ask what is not included. Two, if it's packaged, ask them if they can provide you an itemized statement of what that is and then see what the discount is so that you're comparing apples to apples. Are there cash advance items included in any of these charges? Is this price for a weekday or would this also cover a weekend service? Is there any merchandise included in this fee? And then finally, just ask, what is the realistic final total going to look like? Just ask. Here's another thing. Never apologize for asking questions. When you're spending thousands of dollars, never apologize. You deserve to know every single thing that is on that contract, what you're being charged for, what you may need, what may not be required. So make sure that you're dealing with transparent funeral homes that clearly explain the pricing, that are educating families, and that itemize everything. And here's the kicker. See if they will encourage you to go and get comparison numbers. If they encourage you to say, look, I tell families all the time, I am not the least expensive, but I'm not the most expensive. I encourage, especially if it's a pre-need call or it's an imminent call, I encourage folks to do their homework to make sure they're making the best decision for them. And here's the key thing I want everybody to take with them. A transparent funeral home should never be scared of transparency. That is a red flag if it is. So again, tonight wasn't about attacking, funeral homes. It was about empowering families. It's about making sure that people understand pricing, they understand what a GPL is, and they understand their rights. This way they can make better decisions. The more informed families are, it's better for everyone. It's better for funeral directors. It's better for funeral home owners, managers, etc. Because guess what? The owners and the managers aren't having to put out fires. So I'm not going to keep you. Let me just go back here and see if we've gotten any more comments that we want to talk about before we go. So Jason says, death does not stop because we avoid talking about it, just like death does not come faster because we pre-plan for it. That's perfect. That is perfect, Jason. Awesome. Cindy, we did get basic contract law in mortuary school. Okay. Maybe talking about the different contracts guaranteed in part, and so forth. Chris, we had sites bought for mom and dad when mom died. And we found out the cemetery went bankrupt, had to go pay again. Was shocked. Cemeteries are governed by different rules, regulations, statutes, and laws. And I am not a cemeterian, so I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But I am sorry you had to deal with that. You'd still have to have you prepay funds, but you'd pay current market rates since you're breaking the agreement. I guess if you're transferring to another funeral home, if you're leaving a current one. Okay, no regulating body for funeral homes or death care in the United Kingdom. I found that fascinating, giving the regulating. Yep. Now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole tonight looking into that, Kelly. I'm curious to see if they have the amount of issues that we have over here in the U.S., even with all the wonderful regulations. Ken, I'd like to compliment the both of you for the information you're giving people. You're taking a lot of the mystery out of this process. That's all we want to do. I want to make sure you're well informed. Catherine wants to make sure you're well informed and that you are making the best decision possible for you and your family. Ronald, Batesville Liberty Casket. Well, I wish I would have been that funeral director for you there, Ronald. All right. So again, thanks everybody for jumping on. Again, just quick video tonight. See Susan's question above. Where's Susan? Susan. And maybe I saw some finances hand. Oh, here we go. So what happens if you prearrange, let's say you choose a traditional burial, then some years down the road, change your mind and decide you want cremation instead, and you're already prepaid? Well, here's the thing. If you've done a traditional burial, then you're choosing cremation, and it's a direct cremation. If the pre-need was funded with an insurance vehicle, and there's a beneficiary assigned, and there's no state assistance like Medicaid or Medicare, one of the two, and you're not under state assistance, the difference in the money can be given back to the beneficiary of the estate. Now, if you've chosen a cremation and then you want to go to a traditional burial, you then would probably owe money at whatever the current funeral prices are. So it's whatever you've already paid in for the direct cremation is a pillow to start you to whatever the current prices are for a traditional funeral. You wouldn't be guaranteed whatever the traditional funeral prices are back when you prearranged your direct cremation. So I hope that answered your question. If not, just shoot me an email and I'd be more than happy to answer it for you more in depth to make sure you understand. Dawn, is there a law that when preparing arrangements, the consumer doesn't pay the funeral home direct in PA? Okay, so we cannot commingle at-need funds with pre-need funds. They have to be completely separate. It has to be in a trust. They just can't go into our general operating expenses. So what we use a company called Funeral Directors Life Insurance Company. They hold all of our trust. So we do a statement of funeral goods and services. The funeral is $3,000. We take that $3,000. It's made payable to the trust company because they hold the money in their account. We then, when the time comes that we perform services, make claim as the assigned funeral home. and then we're release those funds to us. And the reason that's done is because it protects your finances. If a funeral home were to ever close and that bank account were to disappear and dissolve, you want to make sure that your funds are still safe and a trusted third party. So I hope that answers the question for you, Dawn. Okay, Kelly, I'll check that out. So, Mary, we have burial plots in Maryland, but live in southern York County. Can you provide the services needed for a burial in another state, or does it need to be handed over to another funeral? Well, Mary, here's the best part. Myself and Chad at Wagner Elfenberg are both licensed Maryland morticians. So if you pass away in Pennsylvania, we don't need to get a Maryland funeral director. We are Maryland funeral directors. We can handle taking the service into Maryland, overseeing the graveside service. We don't need to reach out to another funeral home for that. If you were to pass away in Maryland and need to come back home to your county, we can also handle that for you because we are licensed to practice mortuary science in the state of Maryland. So we got you covered, both south of the Mason-Dixon line and north of the Mason-Dixon line. So thanks, everybody, for staying with me, for hopping on one a little bit longer than I anticipated. But please make sure for As the Hearse Turns, you guys are liking and sharing the information out to folks. I think if we get to 30,000 followers, I will figure out something special to do for a couple of our followers. We'll do a giveaway or something like that. If we can get to 30,000 followers, let's see. Where are we at right now? I got to switch real fast. So right now, we're at 28,000 followers, and it is the 5th. So if we can get to 30,000 followers by May 18th, I will figure out either T-shirts or something like that to give away, and we'll do 5 of them. We'll do 5 As the Hearse Turns T-shirts. So if we share it, get it out, see if you can get some other folks to follow along. But if we can get to 30,000 followers by May 18th, we'll do 5 T-shirts. Debbie, I saw another one. I'm trying to get off here and give you guys back your Cinco de Mayo, but let's see, how different are the laws in Maryland versus PA as a funeral director? There are just a couple. There is differences in statutes and regulations, but in all honesty, most of the laws are the same. They really are, because there's a lot. Once you understand mortuary law and lineage right of disposition, who can authorize arrangements and things like that, you've got it figured out. But every state is a little bit different. Like in Maryland, if the surviving spouse does not make claim to a decedent within 10 days, so let's say they haven't made up their mind for claiming the loved one from a hospital or the medical examiner's office, after 10 days from the date of death, the right of disposition can pass to the next in line because they failed to act. So there's nothing clearly defined like that here in Pennsylvania. So, but who knows? Maybe I'll run for governor and one day clarify those laws. You never know. I'm always full of surprises. Okay. We would rather hang with you than drink margaritas and eat tacos. It is Taco Tuesday. That was from my buddy Breland. It's from my buddy Breland. In Maryland, they can bury one person on top of another one. Is that correct? You can do double depth interment, full body burial. Again, it's a cemetery question, but I have done it in Maryland. The cemeteries have allowed that. And double depth interment is also in Pennsylvania, but it's going to be, again, at the question of the cemetery. So let's see. Anything else that I missed? Mary, there's one particular funeral home in the state where I live that advertises as if they are a discount. No frills funeral home. Everything is a separate extra charge. Is this a red flag? I mean, no. If they're being upfront and honest about that in their marketing, which it sounds like they are, because there are certain, let's call it what it is, direct disposers, where yes, they'll take care of a direct cremation, but if you want an obituary or you want memorial goods, you're paying, you've got to go in and kind of look at the menu and say, okay, I want the direct cremation, but can I get a side of obituary and a large order of death certificates? And that's how their business models work. So it's not that it's a red flag, but is that the service you want? Is that how you want to be treated, or how, those types of things? Again, look at the reviews, look at Google reviews and things like that. That will give you major insight to that stuff. When is the next live Q&A? I will have to talk to Catherine. But hey, I will just say that the next 2 weeks, Catherine and Nate and everybody at the new funeral home are going to be extremely busy. So now Catherine has been going live a lot during the day on the Wagner, Elfner, and Berg page, and she does answer questions there as she can. But for her and I to get together in the evening, I don't know. Hold on. She's telling me to check my text. Boom, boom. Okay. Let's see. What do we have? 10th. Let me talk to you about that just to make sure. I'm going to text you back right now. I'm sorry. I'm texting my boss, so no one yell at me. But yeah, she's got a lot of things coming up the next 2 weeks, getting ready for the ribbon cutting and the new funeral home open. But what we'll do is her and I will discuss, and we'll see if we can maybe do a live Q&A this Saturday night. We'll get the time locked down and things like that. But we'll get that squared away. And then next Thursday, we have our regular show with our guest, Carlton May. So keep your eyes peeled on the As to Hearst Turns page, and Catherine will put out an announcement when we get stuff done. And hold on. Let's break bread and come in person for a Q&A. I mean, let me know if you're in the area. We'll figure something out. So the official, I believe, Catherine has that information on the Berg page. So she can put that information and I think she is going to be opening up more days for tours and open houses just because of the overwhelming response that she's got. So thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening with me. I know that a lot of the information can be very overwhelming, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands that when you are calling and you're looking for funeral pricing, that you are comparing apples to apples, and that you are getting things squared away and you feel confident when you're making a decision. And if you ever have questions, even if we are not a funeral home that you are in, that's in your area, you can always call us, you can email us, you can send us messages. Just because we're not physically performing services doesn't mean we're not here for you guys and your families. Thank you. You're very welcome, Karen. And if you have questions for SoCal, send them our way. All right, everybody, have a wonderful evening. Thank you. And I cannot wait to talk to you again soon. Have a great night. And this is